Hey there, fellow Earthlings! Welcome to another episode of Don't Do This Guide, where we explore the wild world of DIY projects and show you exactly what not to do. Today we're diving into the stinky, slimy, yet surprisingly fascinating world of composting. But before we get our hands dirty, here's a mind-blowing fact that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about poop. Did you know that the average person produces about 320 pounds of human waste per year? Now imagine if we could turn all that waste into something useful. Well, guess what? That's exactly what some eco-warriors are doing. There are composting toilets that can transform human waste into nutrient-rich soil. Talk about recycling. Mistake number 1, throwing everything in the compost bin. You might think composting is as simple as tossing all your kitchen scraps into a bin and waiting for nature to work its magic. Well, hold your horses there, cowboy. Not everything belongs in your compost pile. Here's what you should compost: fruit and vegetable scraps, coffee grounds and tea bags, eggshells, yard trimmings and leaves, shredded paper and cardboard. And here's what you should never compost: meat, fish, or dairy products, unless you want to attract every critter in the neighborhood. Diseased plants, unless you're trying to create a zombie garden. Pet waste. Remember that human waste fact? Yeah, let's not go there. Glossy or coated paper. Sorry, no composting your favorite fashion magazines. Remember, your compost pile isn't a magical portal to another dimension where trash disappears. It's a carefully balanced ecosystem that turns specific organic materials into black gold for your garden. Mistake number 2, ignoring the green to brown ratio. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, I thought we were just throwing stuff in a pile. Oh, sweet summer child, if only it were that simple. Composting is like baking a cake. You need the right ingredients in the right proportions. In the world of composting, we have 2 main categories. Greens. These are your nitrogen-rich materials like fresh grass clippings, fruit and veggie scraps, and coffee grounds. Browns. These are your carbon-rich materials like dry leaves, twigs, and shredded paper. The ideal ratio is about 3 parts brown to 1 part green. It's like a composting dance party. You need more wallflowers, browns, than active dancers. Greens, to keep things balanced. If you ignore this ratio, you might end up with a smelly, slimy mess, too many greens. A pile that takes forever to decompose, too many browns. So next time you're tempted to dump a whole bag of grass clippings into your compost bin, remember, balance is key. Your nose and your neighbors will thank you. Mistake number 3, forgetting to turn the pile. All right, confession time. How many of you have started a compost pile, only to forget about it for months on end? Pause for awkward silence. Yeah, I thought so. Here's the thing. Compost piles aren't like those set it and forget it infomercial products. They need a little TLC in the form of regular turning. Why turn your compost pile? Well, it aerates the material, providing oxygen for those hardworking decomposer microbes. It also helps distribute moisture evenly and brings less decomposed material from the edges into the center where it's hotter. How often should you turn it? Aim for every 1 to 2 weeks. And no, standing next to your compost pile and doing a little twirl doesn't count as turning it. Get in there with a pitchfork or compost aerator and give it a good mix. If you forget to turn your pile, you might end up with a slower decomposition process, anaerobic conditions that lead to bad odors, and a pile that's hot in some spots and cold in others. Remember, a well-turned compost pile is a happy compost pile, and a happy compost pile means happy plants and a happy gardener. Mistake number 4, neglecting moisture levels. Water is the essence of life, and that includes the life in your compost pile. But like Goldilocks, your compost pile is picky. It doesn't want too much or too little water. It wants it just right. The ideal moisture level for your compost should be like a wrung-out sponge, damp to the touch, but not soaking wet. If you squeeze a handful of compost and water drips out, it's too wet. If it feels dry and crumbly, it's too dry. Here's what happens when you mess up the moisture levels. If it's too dry, the decomposition process slows down or stops altogether. Your pile becomes a retirement home for bacteria instead of a microbial dance party. If it's too wet, you create anaerobic conditions, leading to bad odors and slowing down the decomposition process. Plus, you might attract unwanted pests. To maintain proper moisture, if it's too dry, add water or some fresh green materials. If it's too wet, add dry brown materials and turn the pile to help it dry out. And remember, your compost pile isn't a water park. Don't hook up the sprinkler system to it. Mistake number 5, choosing the wrong location. Location. It's not just important in real estate, it's crucial in composting too. You can't just plop your compost pile anywhere and expect it to thrive. Here are some location don'ts. Don't put it too close to your house, unless you want your living room to smell like eau de compost. Don't put it in direct sunlight all day. Your pile needs some shade to retain moisture. Don't put it in a low-lying area where water collects. Drowning your compost microbes isn't cool. And don't put it too far from a water source. You'll need to water it occasionally. The ideal location for your compost pile is partially shaded, well-drained, easily accessible, and away from wooden structures to avoid attracting termites. Remember, your compost pile isn't a lawn ornament or a conversation piece for your backyard parties. Choose its location wisely. Mistake number 6, using the wrong container. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's just a pile of rotting stuff. Can't I use any old container? Well, you could, but then you'd be starring in your own episode of Composting Gone Wrong. Here are some container don'ts. Don't use a fully enclosed container with no air holes. Your compost needs to breathe. Don't use a container that's too small. Aim for at least 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. Don't use materials that will leach chemicals into your compost. Goodbye fancy painted bins. Good compost bin options include wire mesh bins, wooden pallets arranged in a square, tumbling composters for small spaces. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can even go binless with an open pile. Just remember, your neighbors might not appreciate your modern art installation if it's not well maintained. Mistake number 7, expecting instant results. In our world of instant gratification, it's tempting to expect your banana peels and coffee grounds to transform into rich, crumbly compost overnight. But composting is more of a slow jam than a pop song. Depending on your methods and materials, it can take anywhere from a few months to a year for your compost to be ready. Patience is a virtue, my friends. Signs your compost is ready. It's dark and crumbly like chocolate cake, but please don't eat it. It smells earthy, not stinky. You can't recognize the original materials if you're impatient. Try vermicomposting, which is composting with worms. Use a compost tumbler. Add compost accelerators, but where's the fun in that? Remember, good things come to those who wait. Your plants won't appreciate half-baked compost any more than you'd appreciate a half-baked cake. The grand finale, using your compost. Congratulations! You've navigated the pitfalls of composting and come out the other side with a batch of black gold. But wait, there's one last mistake to avoid: using your compost incorrectly. Here's how not to use your compost. Don't use it as a complete substitute for soil. Plants need more than just compost. Don't apply it directly to plant stems or trunks. Hello, rot and fungal diseases. Don't use it before it's fully decomposed. It can rob your plants of nitrogen. Instead, here's how to use your compost like a pro. Mix it into your garden soil before planting. Use it as a top dressing for established plants. Make compost tea for a liquid fertilizer boost. Your plants will thank you with bountiful harvests and vibrant blooms. And you'll be the envy of the neighborhood, known far and wide as the compost king or queen. And there you have it, folks, the ultimate guide to what not to do when composting. By avoiding these mistakes, you'll be well on your way to creating nutrient-rich compost that your plants will love. Remember, composting isn't just good for your garden, it's great for the planet too. By composting, you're reducing waste, improving soil health, and maybe even working off some calories with all that pile turning. If you found this guide helpful and you're now ready to embark on your own composting adventure, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you want more Don't Do This guides for all your DIY needs, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Sometimes the best way to learn is by knowing what not to do. Happy composting, and we'll see you in the next video.